Hi everyone, I'm Nara Chagas. Welcome to a new episode of What's Happening in Brazil. But before the news, we would like to share you a thing. Now, What's Happening in Brazil is also a newsletter. To subscribe, access the website or QR code you see on the screen. Stay even more updated about what's going on in Brazil, always from a popular point of view. And now, let's get to the latest news from the country. One of the most important trials on the demarcation of indigenous lands, the so-called time-frame thesis, was suspended last Friday by the Supreme Court with 4-2 votes in against the thesis. The time-frame thesis, supported by big landowners, say the indigenous peoples should only have the right to the demarcation of lands they already occupied in 1988, when Brazil's constitution was promulgated. The trial will be resumed on September 20. On August 31st, former President Jair Bolsonaro and his wife, Michele Bolsonaro, kept quiet during testimony to the federal police about the illegal sale of jewelry. They are under investigation for embezzling luxury gifts he received as president and then selling them abroad. Still about the illegal sale of jewelry, Brazilian news website WHIB published messages showing that Bolsonaro's former aide Mauro Cid knew about the existence of evidence proving the illegal negotiations of jewelry received by Brazil's presidency. In a conversation with Bolsonaro's lawyer after the first news popped up about the case, Cid says, quote, "What's worse is that everything is documented," end quote. The Brazilian network of female scientists launched a national campaign called #NoHarassment in institutions of higher education. According to a study published by the Brazilian Science Academy, 47% of female scientists suffered sexual harassment and 67% were victims of moral harassment during their careers. On August 31st, President Lula launched Brazil Without Hunger program. The new governmental program intends to get the country out of the map of hunger until 2030. Among the strategies adopted by the government are the strengthening of the new family grant program, the active search of people living under vulnerable conditions, and boost professional training and productive inclusion. Currently, over 33 million people are under food insecurity in Brazil. Brasil de Fato traveled to Pará state in Brazil's north region to know the so-called War of Dendê, a conflict between indigenous peoples and a multinational biofuel company. The Tembé people say they suffer from the violence perpetrated by guards of the agribusiness company.
What once was a rich area used by the Tembé indigenous people to hunt and fish is currently a visibly contaminated region in northeastern Pará state.
Here was a place where my parents, grandparents, uncles, and aunts used to hunt and fish a couple of years ago. They never thought that the contamination would become so huge. We see it as contamination because the water didn't have that color. That's horrible.
According to the Tembé people, this is one of the environmental consequences of the cultivation of dendê, a palm tree whose fruits are used by the biofuel industry. This is one of the areas where Dendê do Brasil Biofuels Company plants. Also known as BBF, the company is a big name in the agri-industry and produces biofuel to generate electric energy. In the North region, BBF plants 75,000 hectares of dendê.
Eu vou abrir meu braço.
I'm gonna open my arm. That is our house. And here is dendê. There is no separation, no distancing. It's all around us, inside our houses. So we reclaimed the land because it is inside our houses.
Miriam is a leader of the Ixing community. She says that her community is located within a portion of the indigenous territory that was not included by Brazil's National Foundation of Indigenous Peoples when demarcating the indigenous land in the 80s. Areas such as this one have been claimed by indigenous people since the 90s, but the regularization process never advanced.
Essa área é uma área que foi.
This area was stolen by agribusinessmen. Our ancestors used it to live here. After taking it, the agribusinessmen sold it to BBF. In 2009, BBF planted a vastness of dendê.
According to the Tembé people, the most serious impact is food insecurity. They say that where dendê has been planted, nothing more grows. The byproduct of industrial cooking of dendê is a liquid called chiborna, which makes animals sick and contaminates sources of clean water. Pesticides contaminate cassava plantations used to make cassava flour, the main food of the Tembé people.
Meu pai me criou na roça, trabalhando.
My father raised me on the farm, working. Today we can't work anymore because we plant cassava and it gets rotten. Everything gets rotten. We have no hopes of planting because of the poison they use.
Dendê was also planted in demarcated indigenous lands. In the Ture Mariquita indigenous land, demarcated in 1991, the dendê palm trees are very close to the borders of the territory, disrespecting the minimum distance provided by law.
Aqui a placa, onde é o território.
That's the sign showing that our land was ratified as indigenous land. Here is where dendê trees got closed, disrespecting the need for a buffer area. If we walk towards there are palm trees inside the land. Where is the limit? There is no limit. It was disrespected. Today we can say that they were planted inside indigenous territory.
The Tembé people also say that the company's security guards are military police officers that act violently. In August this year, 4 indigenous men were shot while protesting in front of BPF's headquarters. 18-year-old Cauã Tembé was one of the victims.
Na verdade, eles não queriam conversa, não tinha diálogo.
They didn't want to talk. We asked them to get out peacefully. They didn't listen to us and pointed their gun at us. We had no guns, just archery. They shot to the ground towards us. That was when one of them shot towards me and hit my leg.
Today, we say that the only thing we take for granted is when we wake up and leave our community. We know we are leaving the community during the morning, but we don't know whether we will come back due to this conflict and the threats we are facing.
We will not give up. We will take back our indigenous territory. We will stand till the very end. We won't give up this fight.
Besides the famous soccer clubs, amateur soccer, known in Brazil as futebol de várzea, is becoming popular among women all around the country. Leisure, socialization, and well-being practice are some of the reasons why they play this kind of soccer. However, they need to overcome different social stigma.
A place to meet friends, celebrate, and practice sports. Far from the professional matches and FIFA standard, it is in what Brazilians call várzea, where popular soccer matches happen on the weekends, a habit mainly male that is changing with the growing presence of women. Beatriz Calheta is a law student and defender of União Lapa Soccer Club.
Futebol de várzea is quite simpler than matches inside soccer fields. I think it ends up attracting women that have never played it before. It has its own rituals and has to do with territorial issues, which end up making us stay.
To be a woman and play soccer used to be a quite difficult thing in Brazil. In 1941, women were prohibited from playing soccer, which was revoked in 1971. However, despite legislation prohibiting it, women didn't stay only at bleachers.
Girls will use crevices to be able to play this kind of soccer, be it against boys, together with them, or among other girls. It will start in 1915, at least according to documents.
Even so, the consequences of the prohibition linger.
To this day, you can see the moral consequence of this in families and schools. How many women have access to soccer? That's why, to me, Futebol de Várzea was this place to claim a public space and the right to the city.
Defender of União Lapa Soccer Club, Camila Góes, who is also a teacher, have always played in clubs aligned with the human rights principles. They care about women's security and privacy in locker rooms, as well as equal playtime for all. Despite this, rooted behaviors weren't totally abandoned, which makes it difficult for women to remain in várzea female soccer clubs.
The environment we have in várzeas is quite masculine. I had to cope with many acts of violence on the field, violent acts from people unrelated to the club. So particularly sexual harassment is quite an issue, because every time I was playing, someone groped me or called fools that didn't exist, so I distanced myself from soccer.
With little to no support from the state, women's soccer in várzea fields need to be seen as a public policy. The absence of investment, for instance, was revealed in a survey produced by the Pontifical Catholic University of São Paulo, with 95 female várzea clubs in the metropolitan region of São Paulo. It showed that half of the clubs survive on donations, and 1 out of 3 have some kind of sponsorship.
Sports are about culture. They are linked to an intense cultural production and also leisure. It's a fertile ground, so it's necessary to understand it as a public policy aimed at the population well-being. I think we are finally being seen here as people who make part of it. Particularly due to the visibility, there is more acceptance.
Did you like the show? So hit the like button and share it with your friends. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel to receive notifications. We'll see you next week.